everyone, I hope you're all having a beautiful day so far. If you are new, my name is Emily, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite Christmas DIYs that I have created, and I hope that you all will enjoy today's video and get lots of ideas. Now I know it's early for some, but I don't feel like it's ever too early to share Christmas DIYs because for one, you can make some of these as gifts and get lots of ideas while the things are actually out at the store and in stock. So with that, I hope you all enjoy today's video. Give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future DIY and decorating videos here to come on my channel. So let's go ahead and get started with these Christmas crafts. I'm using these bell ornaments that come in a 4-pack from Dollar Tree. Such a good deal, and they actually have ones that are glittered and non-glittered. Get the ones that are not glittered to save yourself a little bit of time and effort of cleaning off the glitter. I'm removing the bows. You want to save those. I'm going to be using them for another project in today's video, but I just set those outside, and then I took this Rust-Oleum Imagine gold paint, and I actually thought it was going to be a little bit too bright, but this gold is so nice looking. It has a very vintage look to it, but it's really pretty and crisp. And then once those kind of dried a little bit, then I turned them on their sides. That way I could do the inside of the bells because we want those to look old. Now I'm going to take some regular brown paint and I'm just going to dry brush this on to the bells. It might be hard to see in the video, but it definitely makes them aged a little bit without taking away too much of the gold color. I really love the way this gold color looks, and I really wanted to preserve that. And I did try filing off some of the pattern, but it wouldn't come off, so you can do that or not. I'm taking this twine that you can find at Dollar Tree as well, and I'm looping this through all of my bells. Then I'm taking some hot glue and adding a little bit of glue to the top of the bell and securing that twine. That way the bells don't move as I hang them. And just to get a nice even length, I just kind of staggered them here and glued them down. This might be my favorite project from today's video. I really love the way these turned out. I think they're so classy looking. They're going to be old, but they can be new looking as well. And I really love the way they look on my mantle for Christmas time. I'm starting with some brown paint. This is the Waverly, it's kind of like a stain paint. I forget what it's called. I'll put the name of it on here for you though. But I'm just highlighting the outer edge, and then I'm going to go back in and do the inner curve edge there. And make sure when you're all done, you do one final swoop so you have no lines on it basically. But the first step you really should do is actually trace the outside of the sign first. That way you get a nice, cut on your thing. I'm using this material. It came from Joann's, and this, I just got a foot of it, and it cost me like $1.30. So definitely check that out. Dollar Tree does carry this pattern, but in bigger in the baby aisle sometimes, but I have yet to find it. I think they carry it in like a blanket or a scarf. Some of the other girls use it, but I can't find it for the life of me. So I went ahead and traced that out, and then I put my printable underneath it. You could still see it. It would definitely help if you had a light underneath it, but this is a light material, so I just again went in and traced out the letters. For me, it helps to have this the letters next to it so I know I'm getting the right pattern here. But I'm just highlighting it again with my Sharpie. You could use paint pen if you wanted to, or regular paint, but the Sharpie works great. Now the next step was to take some Mod Podge and spread that all the way around the middle of your pan. I actually took a little bit and just highlighted the edges just to kind of lock in the paint a little bit. It kept wanting to come off, probably because the pizza pan was just such a smooth surface. If you sprayed it, it'd probably be a lot better than painting it on. The next step is to take your scrap paper or your material and go ahead and press that on. I was really careful not to rub too much where the letters were because I didn't want the Sharpie to transfer and get all over the fabric or smudge basically. Then I just trying to figure out the design that I wanted for the top of my sign here. So I layered on 2 pieces of fabric and then glued my stems onto that. And these you can find at Dollar Tree. They're really cute. They're new this year and I love them. And then I took a pine cone and added that to the middle, and then I ended up adding another one with some red foliage, but you could add the snowflake if you wanted to. The next step is optional. You could add some rope to the outer trim of it to make it look a little bit better, or you could add some ribbon. I got this ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I just thought it added a little bit of charm to it. I like both. I like it painted and I liked it with the trim, so it's clearly your choice. A wreath, you need 2 floral picks, hydrangeas, as well as the silver picks, some ribbon of your choice, a glue gun and scissors, as well as the floral ties as well. And you're going to first start by figuring out how you want your floral picks to look. You could actually get probably 5 of these and wrap them completely around the wreath and it'd be really pretty. I'm going to separate these two and bring the 2 pick parts towards the middle and then use the floral tie to wrap it around and secure it to the wreath. You could glue this to it, but I want to be able to reuse these again later on without ruining them. So I am just bending them around, and then I will use another floral tie that I cut in half to secure the top of the sprig to the wreath. Now I decided I wanted to make a bow for this, and I wanted it to be a double bow. So I had this one that I made from a previous DIY and I thought this would be really pretty together. Now you can make your bows however you would like. This one I am going to make a little bit larger, so I'm going to just add a little bit of glue to glue down the layers to this. There's multiple different ways to make bows. You choose the way that you would like first, and then I am just going to secure the other bow I made previously to the one with glue. So now I have my double bow, and you can place this going either direction that you would like. I am going to have it facing down, so I'm adding a little bit of glue and then just pressing that on there to secure that. Go ahead and fluff your bow however you would like. I like the bow ribbon that has the wire in it. Then I just cut the bottom in a V shape, that way it gives it a nice little look on each of my ribbons on the ends. And now you could leave this just as is. I think it's really beautiful, but I wanted to add a little bit more winter wonderland theme to this and give it a little bit more of a iced look. So I wanted to take those white hydrangeas. They do have a little bit of white glitter on them, so it's really nice. It just adds that little bit of sparkle to it. And I placed those, just gluing them down between the 2 ornament bulbs there, and then I took the silver sprigs and just added those kind of tucked into the greenery. That way it just kind of adds a little bit of the silver kind of coming out around the top. And again, this is completely optional. I did that to both sides, and this is how it turned out. I think it is really beautiful. It definitely has that winter wonderland Christmas look to it, and I think it's just gorgeous. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that one. Ribbon, a gift bag, and some wood. Now, gift bags are a great way to make a holiday sign. I've done this before. It's so easy and it's really inexpensive to do. I cut off where the holes were, and then I added the Mod Podge on the board where the gift bag would lay. You can do this with any type of thing. You can do this with scrap paper if you want. You guys have seen that my DIYs, you know I do this a lot. But I'm just kind of centering it on, then pressing it down. And then if the edges roll up on you, don't worry about that. Just wait for the glue to kind of dry a little bit, and then it will adhere just fine. And you'll want to cover that up on the edges with the Mod Podge. Then I took some ribbon and just cut that out to length. That way it would kind of frame the sign. I really wanted the natural wood color to kind of show here. It is an MDF board. It's not like a pine board, which I'd prefer, but I didn't have any on hand, so I just used this. I'm taking my glue and just adding that, and just adding the ribbon as a trim, and I think it just dressed up the sign a lot, and I think it's really pretty looking. You can do whatever you want. You can put actual wood trim on this if you wanted to, or you could sand it off and make it look rustic. 5-inch letters. I picked these up at Joann's. You can use whatever size you would like. And then I will be using this buffalo check fabric, the spatula, some scissors, Mod Podge, some chalk, some paint. I'm using treasure map. These little nails, you can pick these up at Lowe's or like $1.39 for like a 50 pack. Then I'm using black, a hammer, and then this is a 1x6 cut down. And I basically painted it with the treasure map, and I cut them in different sizes because I wanted them to be jagged. And then you can sand them if you'd like, and then you're just going to want some burlap. You can get that at Walmart for like a couple bucks. Now I just like to trim the burlap a little bit smaller than the wood itself. And then once you get that about as straight as you would like, then you're going to take out and fray the edges. Just take out a couple strings at a time, nothing too much here. It just gives it a nice rough, more vintage look to the blocks. And then if something isn't quite straight, you can just trim it however you like. Your Mod Podge, and then I just like to use a little paintbrush and push it away. You can use sponge brushes, whatever you have on hand, and then go ahead and put that on there, and then just again finish with the Mod Podge. You really want to make sure this is glued down well, and this stuff holds up really well. The blocks I've had for a couple years now, and they work wonderful. Then I like to take my spatula and just press it down, especially the frayed edges. They'll tend to pop up a little bit and just want to push those down. Now for the original block letters, I just took my Sharpie. You can use a paint pen, and I just traced around and then filled in the inside of my letters. And then this is how I'm going to do it with a fabric now. Same concept basically, except instead of using a Sharpie, I'm using a piece of chalk. If you have lighter fabric, you could use a Sharpie. Just it wouldn't show up on this black fabric. And this fabric is very thin. It's more of, I want to say, like an organza type of fabric. I didn't want anything too thick. So just be aware of that if you're going to be using fabric on it. You want something like just regular thin cotton, nothing super, you don't want like a fleece or anything. I think that would be too thick. And just take the Mod Podge and layer that underneath, and then continue to press that in, and repeat the same process for all the other letters. The final thing you have to do is just take your nails and nail those into the corners. I'm using the black for the buffalo check. For a style Christmas tree, you will need two supplies. You will want these tomato stakes. I have a small one and a large one. This is just what I had in my yard, so I'm putting them to use. They are used, but you know, I like repurposing some of my decor, even outside stuff. And then I will be using this 9-foot flocked garland from Walmart. That was $13. Such a steal. You can get plain garland as well for as cheap as like $5. So use whatever you would like, but I love the flocked garland that they have. I think it's a great deal. And then I just took the smaller tomato stake and actually put it on my basket. It holds my son's train stuff in it. And then I just took the end piece, that's wire, and then just looped that around the tomato stake. That way it won't move anywhere. And then I just started turning the basket. And then once I got a little bit further down, I just took one of the floral ties and then just wrapped that around the tomato stake, again locking it into place. And then I slowly start turning it again, and then working my way up the tomato stake, and then again locking it into place. Super easy to do. And then just keep working yourself all the way up the tomato stake until you get to the smaller part, and then you'll take that long piece of wire that they have at the end, and you'll just wrap that around the tip of the tomato stake, the very top, and you might have to kind of pull the garland up just a little bit, and then just wrap that around, and then you'll just start taking your sprigs and kind of fluffing them out and filling in the gaps. That way you don't see through the tree as much anymore. It's super easy, you guys. I don't know why I didn't think of this last year or any time year before that. I love this, and it's super inexpensive. So for $13 I have a 4-foot tree instead of paying $25 to $40 for it. So this is what it looks like all lit up. Obviously there are some gaps in it, but every tree does have gaps. Again, you can add more garland to this, but I really love how it turned out. For a total of $13, I will gladly like a ton of these. Materials you will need to make this DIY tree skirt are going to be 4 1x12x15 in length. Of course, this may change depending on the size of tree skirt you will need. You will need a hammer and nails or a nail gun, wood glue, pencil, and a measuring tape. What I like to do is cut one of the boards, and then I will use that as a guideline for the rest of the boards that I will be doing. And of course, every board is cut slightly different. You will also need a saw for this. And again, like I said in the beginning, if you don't have a saw, just have the hardware store cut that for you. Makes it super easy, or you could also borrow them, whatever you need to do. These are just doing straight cuts right now. And as I move into the angled cuts, it definitely can get a little tricky if you're not used to doing that. It definitely takes a couple cuts, at least for me. I'm doing 30 1/4 here, but you could end up using 45-degree angle depending on if you're doing a square box. Mine's a rectangle. I'm sanding down all of the boards, making sure I get any of the splinters out. Then I'm going to take the 1x12x15 and all of my pieces that I cut. I'm going to start laying those on there and making sure everything fits properly, as well as deciding what kind of look I'm going for. You could keep it very simple for yourself and just make a nice outline box for it, frame basically, or you could add the diagonal piece, giving it a little bit more character, and then you could take it a step further and challenge yourself by adding these short pieces to make a complete X. I will definitely say this is not easy for me to do. I had multiple cuts, I made multiple mistakes, but in the end I finally got it and I like the way it looked. Next, you're going to want to take your wood glue and put a little bit of that on each of your boards. That'll just help secure it and make it a little bit stronger. Then you'll go ahead and flip all of those boards over. Now it's time to secure the boards together, and I'm using my nail gun here. You can also use just regular hammer and nails to do this if you don't have a nail gun. I am using 1 1/4 inch nails to secure it. I'm putting 3 in each board. Then I just go ahead and repeat the same process as before, adding glue and then hammering away. And this will be the finished look for one of your boards. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab one of the Works Pegasus clamps. But I like these because they slide right into the table, keeping them secure, and then all you have to do is add glue to your board, and then you're going to go ahead and close that clamp in on itself and then secure it by squeezing it extra tight. Then you have your other hand free to go ahead and nail those away. Since this is 2 boards that I have to nail through, I am going to be using 2-inch nails. Made it so easy for me to do this project by myself, which I really like the fact that they come with the Works Pegasus table. It just makes my life a little bit easier, and you guys know I work on so many different DIY projects, so I really just like how handy it is, and then they store right there on the side, making it super convenient. So this is the way the box turned out. Now if you wanted to add the X on every side, the side angles are going to be a bit larger, so you'll have to make longer cuts, but I like the open box look to this. Next DIY, we're going to be making these trees. I chopped down a couple pieces of wood, and I'm attaching a 2x2 onto the top that is around 6 feet tall, and then I'm using 1x2 boards for like the length for the tree branches basically. I'm attaching 3 of these on. I'm using some short screws for this. It's really easy to do. You can, if you don't want to do this DIY, just go out and buy yourself some trees, but they're kind of expensive, so to keep the cost down and make it really easy on yourself, just go get a 9-foot piece of garland from Walmart. So all I do is twist it around the base, and then I attach it to the top with a screw. That way it stays there for me while I work on the rest of it. And then I basically just kind of wrap it around, and then I use the floral ties. Those ones were there from last year. And then you can also just use the pieces of garland that are already on there and tie it to the branches. It's really easy. It probably looks complicated, but basically you're just going to attach it and then fluff it like you would a normal tree, and then pretty much you're done. It just takes a little bit to kind of manipulate it a little bit and tweak it the way you want it to look. Make a really large farmhouse sign for Christmas. This is 2 feet by 4 feet wide. It's quite massive. I got my primer paint out and I decided to prime my board. This board actually came from Lowe's and it was a scrap piece that I got completely for free. So definitely check the scrap area by the wood area and see what they can give you. That's what I did, and you can use it for various different projects. And you guys know I love making me some projects. The only thing I ran into, which was a first for me, was there was this blue ink that was at the bottom of the board, and it just bled out even more onto the white paint. So I wiped the white paint off, let that dry a bit, and then I sanded it down until the blue was gone. Definitely had to sand it all the way off. So once I did that, then I just primered it, and then I went over with it with just regular white paint, 2 coats.
Let me tell you about old Saint Nick and me, as tight as can be. It's been that way forever. Guess we're shapes that go together.
The next step is to stain our trim pieces for our sign. These are 1x2 pine boards that you can get from Lowe's. They're usually 8 foot long and they're under $2, really inexpensive. I cut mine down and then I sand them so they're nice and smooth and there's no splinters on them. And then I take some gloves and a rag and I wipe on my dark walnut stain by Minwax. You can use whatever color stain, or you can even paint these if you wanted to. And then I will let them dry before I attach them to my sign. Here I just make sure that it's level with each side. I usually like the length of my sign to be the longer trim pieces. I'm using my DeWalt nailer here and just nailing them on. If you don't have a nail gun, don't fret. You can use a really thin finish nails and a hammer and hammer them in. That's how I used to make my signs before I got the nailer for Mother's Day a few years ago. The next step for this sign is to add our letters. I'm using a stencil for part of this and just stenciling them on. This came from Joann's, but you can print these out. It's completely up to you. I did a mixture of both, and you'll see here in a minute. But I like the combination of the different fonts that they have. I'm just freehanding a few different trees onto the sign. I got the inspiration for the sign from the Walmart pillow that you'll see right there. They had so many cute pillows this year and I thought this would make a really adorable sign. I like to use stencils and then also print out words and freehand. You can do all three or one or the other or none. So here I'm just cutting out the words that I printed out. I went into my Word on my computer. I printed out the word Christmas trees. I highlight it, then I pick the font that I want. Then I go to the Insert tab, click the A that says Word Art, and then I pick the third one. Then I click the little A again and hit the Transform all the way at the bottom. And then I can pull and drag that however large or small that I want it. And I do that for each word in there. And then you can just print it like normal. Do what works for you. I find that's the best tool in my, I just have a regular PC, so that's the best tool for me to print out my words the way I want them to look. And then I'll lay them out. I will go ahead and take my pencil and just scratch the back of the paper, adding the graphite to it, and then you're going to line that up exactly where you want it and then just trace your word, and that graphite that's on the back will transfer wherever you've traced. And sometimes it's usually pretty light, so you can just re-highlight it before you want to paint it. You can use graphite paper or carbon paper for that as well. I've gotten carbon paper from Office Depot. I'll leave it linked down below if you need some. But this is a really easy and cheap way to make signs without having special equipment for it. So now I'm taking some black paint. This is actually Waverly paint that I've gotten from Walmart, but you can use regular acrylic paint for this, and I'm just filling in all the letters that I have traced on. larger letters, I will use a thicker paintbrush, and then for the smaller ones, I will use a tapered brush because I find that it really works and it makes the lines flow a little bit better. I really enjoy painting. It's really peaceful, so hopefully you'll find it relaxing too. After I took a break, I came back and then started filling in the trees. I'm just using a dark green color that I had on hand. It's acrylic paint, and I am just going over the black outline that I did with the paint. And don't worry, I will actually cover up some of the black smudges that I have on there. I ended up going a little bit too far out for some of it. I just did this as a guideline for me. You can totally freehand it, do whatever you want. I actually liked putting the green in and then going back once that was almost dry and adding in black. It just gave it a richer color and added more depth to the trees. And the last step to finish my sign is to add hooks on the back, that way I can hang it on the wall. For this size sign, I used 2 of these hooks. You can find them anywhere. I'll have some link down below if you want them. In the wall, so I don't do any new hooks in there. No more nail holes. I'm trying to do a little better at that. But I hope that you guys are being inspired by this video. I hope that you guys can make a sign. It's a lot of fun and really inexpensive, especially if you can get the wood for free. Why we're going to start by making the bow first. I'm just making one loop, and then I'm going to draw that piece of ribbon over again, and then just make another loop, and continuing that, just alternating sides, whichever direction that ribbon is going in. I'm just going to make that loop. I'm going to get 3 on each side, and then the last piece will go over the top, and then you'll want to basically hold that down while you get a piece of wire or some type of ribbon to tie it. And then I'm basically going to loop that wire over, tie a little knot in it or twist it on the back, and then basically it cinches your bow together. And this is the way it will look. I'm using wired ribbon, which I suggest doing, and then I'm just going to cut the tips of the ribbon here. You can do it in either direction if you want. You can make a V in it. It's completely up to you. But now that we have that done, you can leave it just like this, or you're going to take a little bit of extra ribbon, loop that over the top, and cut that, and then just glue that on top of the ribbon, and it gives it a nice finished polished look. You can do way more than just 3 loops on each side. You can do 5 if you want, 2, 1. It works, whatever works for you. The next step is to get a grapevine wreath. I'm using the lighter frosted sprigs are from Dollar Tree. They're just called a regular fern there. They're new this year and I love the way they look. So I'm just layering those on each side. I left a spot in the middle for my bow. Now this eucalyptus is actually from Walmart. It's $2 a bundle and you get quite a bit. I only used 1 bundle for this, and I'm basically alternating that underneath the frosted stems, and I really like the way these 2 greeneries look together. If you're not into it, you can just do 1 if you want to, and you don't have to just stick with green. You could do reds or berries or whatever works for you. Then I took the pine cones that already had stems on them that are from the Dollar Tree, and I just layered those in as well. You can do however many small or large that you want. Next I took this burlap ribbon bow that I made, just doing a simple, basically regular tie, and then I glued that to the wreath, and I glued my other one on top of it. And here, this is where you can add to your wreath. There's this joy sign that you can get from Target Dollar Spot, or you can add a truck to it if you want to paint that. But in the end, I just ended up leaving it just the wreath with the bow and the greenery, and I really like the way it all came together. I think it's really pretty. And I also just wanted to put what your supplies were. You can screenshot this in case you want to pick these up at the store. You are going to want these 2 signs from Dollar Tree. I just took the Santa one and flipped it over and then tried to remove the tag. The snowman sign, I just ripped off the fabric that was on top. I've had this sign for 2 years from Dollar Tree. I think they still carry it. I know they have a few different versions of it now, so just be on the lookout for something similar. I also took off the wood sign that was on the top. I took off his nose and then took the scarf off and the berries. The fabric, you'll just want to toss it. Then I took some of my Waverly white paint and just brushed where I was going to put his face. You don't have to do the top or the very bottom of it because we're going to dress that up later on. And then I did the same thing, just repeated it to the back of the Santa sign. If you want to use the front of the Santa sign, you totally can. I would just suggest sanding down the glitter that's on top, and you might need 2 coats of paint for the top because it is red. Now, I was just dry brushing this on, and then I realized I wanted it to be solid for the top part, so just do what works for you. The bottom can be more vintage looking if you want it to be. Then I took the nose of the snowman and I painted this black. You can leave it orange if you want to, but I'm going for a very farmhouse look for this. And then I took the top of his hat and I just flipped that over and painted the back of it black. You can leave it as let it snow if you want to. Again, it's completely up to you. The next step was to take your fabric of choice. This came from Joann's many moons ago, but they might still have something similar. You can get it from Walmart, wherever. I just took the scarf and traced around it with a pencil, and then just cut that out with my scissors. And you can use fabric, you can use paper for this. It's completely up to you. I took some glue and then mushed that around onto the sign, spreading that out. And then I'm going to take my piece of fabric, or if you're using paper for this, like scrap paper, you can put that on there as well. Again, use what you have, be creative in your own way, figure out what you want to use and your sign to look like. The next step, I took a ruler for this and I used my paint pen and just traced a straight line across. And we're basically giving this sign a shiplap look, and you can do this however thick or skinny you want. It's completely up to you. The ruler works really well for this, and it's my painting one, so I don't care if I get paint on it. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. It wipes off fairly easy. So you're just going to do that to the top part of the sign, and then you're going to do it to the face of the snowman as well. Now the sign that said let it snow, I remember I painted the back of it black. Now I'm just going to freehand this house on it. You can write whatever you want. You can also use stick-on letters and then just Mod Podge them on or glue them on. It's completely up to you, but I decided just to freehand it and it works fairly well. Do what works for you. Once that allowed that to dry and I actually put fabric on the top of his hat, I glued that piece onto it. Then I took his nose and glued that on next. And then I took the scarf piece and added the glue onto the face and then just added that right on. And then I'm going to flip this over and we are going to work on the bottom part. Now the metal words that Dollar Tree has did not fit the way I wanted it to, so I took this fall sign that I had left over and put that on top just to extend it, so that way my sign I could put the metal word on and then put an S at the very end of it. That way it says in this house believes. But again, you don't have to do this. You could freehand whatever you want on that. I could have done that, but I was determined to use this metal word. I used it from another project as well. But now I'm going to glue the head onto the body, and I'm adding glue just at the very base of it and sticking that on. And then I'm using these popsicle sticks just to add added support to the back of the sign, just so it holds together really well. And then I decided to put on some eyeballs. You don't have to. I was going to leave these out, but last time I left eyeballs off of my snowman, people said he's missing a mouth and an eyeball, so I added them for you guys. I think it looks good though. And then I took these snowflakes that Dollar Tree has. They're wooden cutouts. They usually come in a 5 or 6 pack, I think. And I went ahead and glued that on. And I put 2 of those on. And then I just took some of my white berries and put those on near his hat and glued them on the back. And then the berries that originally came on the snowman, I added those back on there as well. And this is how he turned out. I think he's really adorable. I love how shiplap he looks. I think it's really cute. Again, you can make it say whatever you wanted. The trees are from Target dollar section. I just added some ribbon from Walmart. For this DIY, I'm using the larger grapevine wreath that you can find at Dollar Tree, along with some green frosted ferns that you can find there, and I'm just gluing them down sporadically and only going about halfway up the wreath. You can go all the way around if you want to. It's completely up to you, but I'm using some longer ones and some shorter ones, and then we'll be adding them in as we go. Now I'm going to take these mini ornaments that you can find at Dollar Tree as well. Some of these are glittered, some are matte, and some are shiny. And I'm just alternating between the red and the silver. You can use whatever color that you would like for this. It's completely up to you, but I like the combination of the green, the red, and the silver together. I like to work as I go, so what I'm doing now is just taking some of the red ferns that Dollar Tree carries, and I'm just kind of pulling them apart. You can cut them, whatever you want to do, and I'm just going to kind of tuck those in with a couple more of the small green pieces in between my ornaments, just to add a little bit more filler in between those areas. You can do whatever you want for this, but I think it looks really pretty, and it almost looks a little bit more natural. I know it sounds funny considering they're ornaments, but I like the way it kind of flows together. And I am sorry about my voice. I am getting over a cold and it just happens to sound like a frog, so I'm sorry. Hopefully that doesn't bother you. Now I'm taking one of the ornament trees that Dollar Tree carries in a 2-pack, and I'm going to glue that upward. I know we had it horizontal earlier, but I didn't like that, so I'm going to glue it upward, and I'm just going to add in a couple more ornaments and greenery and a little bit of red to fill in that space on the bottom. I thought it'd be pretty to add some red and silver ribbon to the top of the wreath to hang it. This ribbon came from Dollar Tree. It is very flaky and glittery, so just be fair warned on that, but it definitely shines and looks really pretty with the ornaments as well. Now I'm just gluing on a little bit of a smaller ribbon to the top of this, and then just gluing that down over the top, and then you can hang it that way. And then I'm just taking a little red ornament ball and gluing that to the top of the tree just so it shines a little bit, but this is the way it turned out, and I think it's really pretty. For the next DIY, I'm using this really cute free hug sign. I'm going to remove the backing label on it, and then I'm just going to dry brush the back of the sign white. And I'm not using a ton of paint for this, but I wanted enough to cover up a lot of the brown. I wanted it to kind of look like shiplap, but not, if that makes sense. I want it to look a little bit vintage and old. So you can do whatever you want. You can add on the paint and then sand it off. Do what works best for you, but dry brushing is really simple. You're just going to apply a little bit of paint to your brush and then brush it out, and it kind of feathers it on in different areas. It's really easy to do. You're going to let that dry and set that aside. Next, I'm going to take this free printable that I'll have linked down below for you all if you'd like to get that. And I am just highlighting the back of it with my pencil, and that basically just adds the lead on the back, and I can trace that on to my sign. You can use carbon paper for this, or you can just freehand it. You can do whatever works for you, but you're just going to trace over each of the letters, and then that will leave a mark on the sign for you. And then I was painting this, and I thought, why don't I just use my Sharpie to write the letters in, and then I can paint over it. You can do whatever works for you. I ended up doing both because I wanted it to be slightly thicker looking, but again, do what works for you. They do make paint pens as well. I really do not like the way my C and H came together, so when I leave the printable for you, I'll have that fixed in the description box for you. I'm just adding a cute little snowflake to the bottom of the sign. I thought it needed a little bit of something there. Again, I'm just freehanding this. You can put this here, you don't have to, it's completely up to you. And then I'm going to be using these chalkboard labels that Dollar Tree carries in the craft area, and I'm going to glue that down, and I did do it backwards on purpose or upside down, and I'm basically going to take a little bit of some greenery that we had left over from the previous DIY, and I'm going to snippet that into 2 pieces, and I'm going to glue that down and put that right in the little area where the tag would normally hang. And then I'm going to add a little red ball there too, just to spruce it up a little bit and bring a little bit of color to the sign. Now it's time that we need to make the bow. For this, I'm just using a 1-inch wired ribbon, and I'm just looping it over onto itself, making those loops. You can make a bow any different way. You can buy bows, Dollar Tree has plenty of them. And I'm just taking a little piece of wire, squeezing that around the middle, and then twisting that. That way our bow will stay in place. And then you can, since it's wired, you can move the bow strips around, the loops anyways, and then I just like to cut the ends. You can make a V in them or just cut them straight, adding a little bit of glue to the bottom of the bow and then gluing that down. And you can shorten, your ribbon however much you need to. I'm taking this cotton pick that I found at the Dollar Tree with some greenery on it and gluing that down. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the other greenery that's frosted and add that in. Again, I like to add a couple of different layers. Then you can get this chalkboard pen at Dollar Tree as well. And I can't believe we have less than 20 days till Christmas. It's going by so fast. I took my Sharpie and just did a little dotted line on the perimeter, and I really like the way that added a little bit of character to the sign. This wrapping paper, it is in the aisle that they have all of their posted stuff in the Dollar Tree, a Sharpie or a paint pen, and then you're going to want some paper clips, any size will do, some twine. Dollar Tree was out, so I just used my backup twine, and then some carbon paper. I'll leave mine linked down below if you want to use that, and then a ballpoint pen. And then these are my words that I printed out using Word. Super easy, you'll just cut them down to size, and I'll go ahead and show you in Word how I do it. So this is just regular Microsoft Word, and then I will go ahead and put in my words, highlight them, and then I'll go over to the font and see whichever font I like the best and kind of play around with it. For this one I'm using Magnolia Sky. I really like this one. And then all you have to do is go over to the Insert tab and then click that big A right there, and then I go to the third one over because it just outlines it and uses less ink, and then I'll go to the little A, hit the transform button, and take the third link down. And then basically this will allow you to stretch the words however big or small you want them, and you can do this for each word or a few words or the entire thing. It's completely up to you. And then I always set my margins to very small. So here you're just going to want to fold out the paper and then start rolling it up, and I found at least 6 to 8 rolls was good, and maybe even 10. And then just take your paper clip and clip that on each end, and that'll hold that in place. And the thing I like about this is that you can put tons of different signs on this one scroll because there's quite a bit of paper on this, which is really cool. Once you have that, go ahead and hold it back because it will want to roll up on you. And then I just started taking my words and laying them out, kind of dry fitting them, see how I wanted them to fit and look on the page. And normally you're going to want to measure this and everything like I'm doing here, making sure everything's even on each side. I like symmetry. And then I usually tape this stuff down, but since it's on paper, I'm not taping it. I'm just leaving it free to blow away basically. So just hold it down as you insert your carbon paper, and then I just start tracing around the outside of the letters. Basically everything that's outlined is what I will outline, and that will just give me everything I need to do to fill in. Like I said, if you have beautiful handwriting, then freehand it, baby, but I do not. Mine sucks. So as you can see, it just outlines it perfectly, and it's really good. And I just do this for the rest of the sign. If a paper does move, just eyeball it if you need to. If you want to, get out your measuring tape and measure it. Have that all done, then I just went ahead and started with the Sharpie first, and then I just started outlining the words, and then you'll basically fill them in. So it's basically like an adult coloring game. This is how I make my signs normally, my wood farmhouse signs, except I use paint. Now the Sharpie I found did well. Mine was running out of ink, which was a bummer. I would suggest if you're going to be doing larger letters like I did, get a bigger ball end on it, or a thicker end to your Sharpie versus just the regular writing style, because that'll save you a lot less just coloring in. Put on a movie, relax, and color away basically. Here I'm using the paint pen, which I actually liked the coverage of it because it was actually full of ink basically, or paint. Versus the Sharpie, you can see how it was kind of faded, so I actually went ahead and got over that after I got done with doing all the letters with the paint pen. Neither the paint pen or the Sharpie bled through the paper, so if you're worried about that, it does not. At least for me, it didn't. Next, once you have that, go ahead and take your twine and loop it through one end and just push it all the way through. And then you're going to want to figure out the length. I cut too much, so I decided to cut mine down a little bit. Leave a little bit for you to tie a knot in. And once you do that, just go ahead and cut away. And then I took some tape and just taped the end. That way it wouldn't fray, especially with the rope. You don't want it to fray on you. And then I just went ahead and tied a knot. And I kept it pretty small because that knot's going to go inside the tube. So if your tube is small, you're going to want to make your knot smaller so you don't have big ends sticking out the way I had it there. And then go ahead and just file that through. That way that knot is in the middle and you won't see it. And that is how you're going to hang your sign. And then the paper clips on the ends will keep it from basically rolling up or rolling out. And this is the way it turned out. I think it looks really beautiful. I do know I have two ends in there. I can't redo that, so ignore that part. But now we're going to make this pillow. You'll want a glue gun or a sewing machine, your preference, some pillow stuffing, as well as these gift bag totes. And I like these because they're a very good size. They have a ton of different colors on them. I love this one that says naughty, nice, or tired. And just go ahead and take your pillow stuffing and stuff that inside. Now you could just cinch this, but I wanted it to look like a normal pillow, so I just added some glue along the trim and just folded that over and then just pressed that together. You can use a sewing machine for this, or you can use the adhesive tape as well. Do whatever works for you. I found that this was the easiest and I love the way this looked. For the next one, you're going to want a glue gun, the star banner. This is the wood ones, and then they also have these puff balls that look like snow. They also have this other garland that has red and silver on it, so you can choose whichever banner you're going to use. I like the star one especially since it drops down. All I'm doing is adding a little bit of glue to the middle string between the stars and then gluing the snowballs to it basically. You could add these wherever you wanted to. You could add them to the stars if you wanted to, or above the stars. But I thought they looked really good, and then I thought I might need just a little bit more because I like that rustic look. So I have these regular pine cones that you can just use a little bit of white paint on the tips. And then I'm just adding a little bit of glue and gluing that to the top of the star string. And I really liked the way this looked together. It definitely has that rustic farmhouse charm to it. I think this is such a cute garland, and you can obviously personalize the stars the way you would like to. Next Christmas DIY, you're going to want a full-size wreath, some burlap ribbon of your choice, some snowflakes, floral sprigs, as well as a glue gun and maybe an ornament. I start by taking my burlap ribbon and wrapping it all the way around the wreath. Now you could use burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, but mine was fresh out and I had this on hand, and so I used it. It's from Walmart. Hobby Lobby does sell it as well. Cut off the excess that you don't need and then take your glue gun and glue the rest of it just together. That way it stays. Then I'm going to take my floral sprigs and put these on each end. These two are actually from Walmart. They were 98 cents a piece. Dollar Tree does have plenty for you to choose from as well. Then I'm going to take a floral tie from the Dollar Tree and wrap that around, holding the sprigs on. You could glue them on there as well. I'm gluing on a little bow that I made with my excess ribbon, and then I'm taking a little bit of glue and adding my snowflakes onto the wreath. I used 5 for this, which was great. If you have a larger wreath, you might need a little bit more. I love the way this looked, but I thought it might be kind of cool to add the reindeer head to it, so I glued that onto the middle, and I love the way this wreath came out. These Dollar Tree Christmas DIYs will be a wreath, 2 bells, as well as this bow with a little bit of a floral sprig on it. They have 2 colors that you'll see later on in the video in the shop with me part. You'll need a glue gun, a couple different colors of paint of your choice, a paintbrush, and then just something to paint it in. First, I'm just going to remove these bows. They're just wired on, so that made that really easy. I didn't like them, as well as the gold. I am just brushing on the white paint here. Dollar Tree does carry paint as well. You could spray paint these if you wanted to. I just wanted to mute them down a little bit, and I wanted to give them more of a farmhouse look, and so that is why I'm dry brushing the white on, which I think actually makes them look really nice, gives them more of a vintage look to them. Once those have dried, then I will go in with my black paint, and then I'm just again dry brushing this on. I wanted them to look old and vintage looking. You can use brown for this if you wanted to. You can do them solid. It's completely up to you. Let your imagination run wild. While those dry, go ahead and take your wreath. This is an 18-inch wreath that I found at the Dollar Tree as well, and I'm just fluffing it, and then I'm just going to take those wire ties that are on the bells and just cut them, and then I'm just going to twist them onto my wreath. You could glue them on if you wanted to, but I like just twisting them on because then they have that free range just to kind of dangle like normal bells would. Then take your bow and tie or glue that on to the very top. And if you want to, you can add a little bit more foliage to the wreath because they are a little sparse from the Dollar Tree, but they're only $1 a piece, so if you bought 2 of them, it would definitely give it a fuller look. I really love the traditional colors here for Christmas. I just love how easy this DIY was. Has that rustic farmhouse charm to it, and I think it looks really cute. It has that old school feel. Something else I did, which you can also find at the Dollar Tree, are cotton stems. If you can't find them, you can always check Hobby Lobby. These were 79 cents from there, and I just stuck one on each side. I really like the way it looks. You could also wrap them all the way around the wreath to give it more of a snowed look. For this next DIY, you're going to want a tin, the wire cutters, a glue gun, and some ribbon of your choice, as well as 2 of these small little trees and a wood pick. And what I'm going to do is take my tree and put it on the bottom of the container first to see how much I need to cut off. It cuts pretty easy. This is a really thin plastic on the bottom, and then I'm just twisting it around and then making my other cuts. That way it will fit inside. Then on the one tree, go ahead and twist off that part that you would put the legs on, and you'll notice at the very top it's actually just hollow on the inside. It's just this metal basically pipe. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stick this small little wooden dowel in there. Dollar Tree does carry these. Mine I got from Walmart. I've just had it on supplies. It's like maybe 50 cents or so. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to that and then stick that in there. That way it'll adhere. You could also use E6000. This was a subscriber's request that I show you guys how to do this. I made some DIY Christmas trees about a week or so ago out of garland, and it turned out great. They wanted to see if I could do it out of the Dollar Tree trees to make it a little bit cheaper. You definitely can. Next, I'm just going to be making this bow, regular style bow here. Because it's a wired ribbon, it's really easy to kind of manipulate it and make it look the way you want to and fluff it out. I'm just adding a little bit of glue to my tin and then gluing that on. I was originally going to wrap it around the tin, but since the tin isn't quite a full circle, it has more of an oval shape, it didn't want to stick very well. And then I'm just cutting in V's at the bottom of my ribbon to dress it up a little bit and make it look a little bit higher end. And I think it looks really good. Next, you can use these wire ties as well as this garland that you can find at the Dollar Tree. We need to add some foliage to these trees because they are super sparse. And so all you do is just tie it around, and you're going to need quite a bit of these, so you might be better off. I think there's 12 wire ties in a bag, so you'll be better off just buying the garland. I think it's 15 or 25 feet in there, so you get a little bit more for your money, and then just kind of twisting it around, and it's a little bit longer, so it kind of adds a little bit more fluff to the tree. But you could easily do this with garland from Walmart as well, and do it the way I did my trees last week, which I think is a little bit easier personally, but it's just like to show you guys different ways of doing things. I have these berries. Dollar Tree does carry some. I had this sprig from Hobby Lobby. It was 79 cents, and I'm just ripping them off because they're kind of short, and then just adding a couple berries to the tree. And then to secure the tree into the container, you just want to add like rocks or some sand on top of it to hold the weight down. It doesn't really work very well if you glue it. I tried that and it didn't work at all. So I'm just kind of fluffing these berries into the tree and giving it a little bit more of a dressed up look. You could totally go balls out on this and do ornaments and stuff, but it's kind of a really skinny tree. The other thing I did was add a couple pine cones to it. I wanted to show you what the painted pine cones would look like versus the regular pine cones. It's about 2 feet, but it cost me $3 to make with the tin, so really not too bad. So for the next DIY, this has to be my favorite. You're going to want a glue gun, some cotton stems, ribbon, and this snowman sign, as well as 2 different sized wreaths. This is a 15-inch wreath from the Dollar Tree, as well as the 18-inch wreath from the Dollar Tree. All the supplies are from Dollar Tree. I don't know why I keep saying that. You're going to fluff each of your garlands out, and again, you can double these up to make them thicker. All I'm doing is attaching them together by tying them together with the wire ties that are on there, and then filling that foliage. And then you're going to add a little bit of glue to the very top of this smaller wreath, and then you're going to take your snowman sign and turn that over and just hold that down till it dries. You could again use E6000 if you would like to, but add a lot of glue, that way his head doesn't fall off. Then I decided to take these cotton stem and kind of use them as arms, except instead of having them stick out, I wanted them to just kind of wrap around the wreath itself. And my littlest one was like, "Mama, look at his carrot. He's got a carrot nose." He was so excited to see him as he's pointing it out to you guys. So I just kind of tucked those in, and then I had that same bow that was there, and I didn't quite like it, so I decided to use my ribbon, and just again tying a regular bow tie here, and then kind of fluffing that out and pulling it down and kind of figuring out what exact size I wanted. And I'm actually going to place that in the middle of the 2 wreaths, and again I'm cutting my V shape in the bottom of the ribbon. And then I'm taking a small piece of ribbon to fluff it up a little bit in the middle and just gluing that down onto the other ribbon so that the middle of it looks nice and uniform and pretty looking. And then you're just going to add a little bit more glue and then glue that down. So I wanted to see what he would look like if I put him on my shutters. He fit fairly well, but I think it is the cutest snowman ever. I just love the way this came out. You'll need a stove cover for this. Dollar Tree carries them in a 2-pack, a larger and a smaller one. So the first step is to take whatever fabric you want as your background, or you could paint a background on. Get a piece of wood, add your Mod Podge if you're using fabric, and then you're going to lay that fabric on and then press it all on until it's completely flat. I will say this burlap, Walmart carries it at a really good price. But it doesn't lay as flat as like regular material. You have to kind of hold on to it. So I ended up adding a little bit of hot glue around the edges just to hold it on there. And now I'm using those Jenga blocks again, and I'm adding them together, just gluing each piece together. And I did 5 across this one, or actually 6, sorry. And then I made sure it fit the size of my sign, and then I'm going to do a second layer of blocks, gluing each of them together and then gluing them down. Make sure when you're doing this it lays flat, because this is what's going to hold up your sign, just like it did for the music sign that we made. You can make this however thick or small you want. Once that was dry, I took some black paint and just covered the top sides of it in the I just wanted it to kind of look like it was burnt and blend in a little bit. I didn't want to do the stained look for this. Again, do what works for you. The next step is to take that stove cover and paint the inside of it. Again, I'm just using black paint by Waverly, and you can use whatever you want. You could spray paint this if you wanted to and get a really clean finish. I actually like the little bit of texturing through the through brushing it on, so it just depends on for you. I'm taking a small strip of wood. It's about 2 inches in height, and then the length is, I think it's 8 inches. I painted that white. Now I'm taking these ornaments, the reindeer, and again I'm splitting them in half because I only want one side of it, and I'm taking these other ornament trees and then I'm going to glue them onto the wood stove cover. Now I had to use a lot of hot glue for this, so I would suggest using E6000 if you want this to stay permanently with the hot glue, and then press something heavy on it. The next step was I actually printed out the word Merry Christmas. I put the pencil on the back side of it so that way I could trace it onto my sign, and then I'm just using a paint pen in black and then going over my lines. Dollar Tree started carrying the paint pens. I found silver and gold. I haven't found black yet, but they might have it, so keep your eyes out on that. It was on the end cap when I went. Then I took a couple of those snowflake stars. I've been using these like crazy for projects lately, and put those all around so it's kind of like under the moonlight, I guess you could say. I took some of that fern greenery that Dollar Tree carries along with some red berries. I just clipped off a few, and then I'm just layering those on. You can use whatever you would like for this, but I'm loving the way this looks. I think it's so pretty. I'm adding tons of glue to the trim, and then I'm going to glue on my wood sign that says Merry Christmas to it. And I think it's really cute on its own. I took a little bit of the green like tying sprigs that Dollar Tree carries and cut it into fourths, and then just added that behind it for a little pop of color because I felt like it needed a little bit more, and I really liked the way this came together. Then I just added a little bit more berries to it, and then the next step was to take hot glue and then glue the sign down onto it that we made earlier. And again, you could, if you're using, wood, you could staple this together for even better, hold. And then I added hot glue to the back and then glued on my sign. Then I felt like it needed a little bit pop of color still, so I took that green tying sprig and then just added hot glue to the top, and then pushed that on, and then just clipped off any excess with my wire cutters. And then I'm loving this ribbon again from Walmart. Dollar Tree does carry quite a bit. I ended up putting one bow in the middle. You can do what works for you for this. I decided to use white as the base color, so I'm using Waverly chalk paint here just because it's thicker and it gives a nice good coating. You can do 2 coats if you want to, but 1 is fine. Then I'm going in with this red color here, and this is where you can use whatever color you would like. I love the way the red stands out on this, and I ended up putting like a little small angled stripe about every inch to half inch or so, and then just kind of space those out, and then I tried to line up the top lines with the bottom ones the best I could. Now you could use paper for this if you don't want to do this, but I think this is perfect. You don't need any tape. It doesn't have to be exact or anything. It was pretty easy for me to freehand. And I feel like you guys will be able to do this too. Now I'm just taking this stripe and lining up everything, and then I will go back in and connect all of the little stripes, and then I'm kind of curving that stripe over just so I know I get my lines straight on the other side as well. And again, you can use whatever colors you would like. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Mod Podge and some red glitter, and this is optional. I wanted it to sparkle a little bit more like an ornament would, so I just highlighted every other red line on here with the Mod Podge and the glitter. You can do every one if you want to. It's completely up to you. Then I decided I thought it would be pretty if I added another stripe of red in here just to kind of add a little bit more of a highlight, I don't know, to give it a little bit more dimension to the ornament. This is optional, you don't have to do this, but basically I outline the entire thing and then I go over that strip, a line of Mod Podge, and then you can just use your paintbrush to add the glitter, or you can do it old school and just dump the glitter on there, making sure the rest of your paint is dry obviously first, and then just dump it off. The next step is to take your metal word and glue that down. You can use hot glue, E6000, it's your choice. You can even paint it gold if you wanted to. The next step I actually thought would be really pretty. I know I didn't show you florals in the beginning, but just take a little bit of this green foliage that's frosted, add a little berry to the top, and then I frosted the berries with a little bit of glitter as well. And I love the way this ornament came out. How I made this lantern, I made it back in the fall time, so I'm going to go ahead and insert that clip now. You're going to want 4 frames, all of the same size, hair cutters for the wooden dowels, a measuring tape to measure the wooden dowels, some hot glue sticks, and obviously glue gun. I started by taking the frame out and everything, and then folding back those metal tabs onto the black part. That way I could take out the piece of glass and add a glue all the way around the perimeter, and then that would seal in the glass piece. That way it wouldn't go anymore. And then I went ahead and took hot glue and applied it to one edge, and then hold the other frame to it and try to get a 90-degree angle if you can, and press it down and hold it till it has dried. Then you will do the same thing to the other side. Next, go ahead and apply the glue on both ends of the frames. That way you can hold the last frame onto it, and then go ahead and press that all the way down, sealing that glue. Once that has dried, take whatever color you desire. Go ahead and take some hot glue now and apply it to the dowel, then apply it to the glass. That way it keeps it in a nice straight line. I decided to just do one, but you could make a complete X. I added 1 wooden dowel to each side. You can do more if you wanted. I'm using this cutter and some scissors, and then some foam board that we're going to want to make our top, and some paper. We're going to make it into triangles so that our top of our lantern is tiered. A glue gun, and then some glue sticks, obviously, and then I'm going to be using some ribbon that I have left over, and then all of this stuff is from Dollar Tree. It's a mix of berries and greenery. Use whatever you would like for this part. It's completely up to you. This square piece of foam board fits exactly into the lantern itself, so now we're going to make some templates. I took 2 pieces of paper and folded them into a triangle using that square piece, and then that allowed us to figure out what size triangles we needed for our lantern. And so you can see we've made our paper template here. Now you're going to take those papers and you're going to trace the triangles onto the foam board, and you want 4 of them. And then I just took my cutter here and cut that down. If you don't have it, it's totally fine. You can use a razor blade or just regular scissors. Either one's good. Just don't cut yourself. I just went ahead and cut all of those out. And once you have them all together, then I'm going to add some glue to one side. And once I run out of glue, and then I'm going to just adhere that and kind of bend it in a little bit while the glue dries. So you're going to add that little bit of flex in the glue, and it'll hold there, don't worry. And then you're going to do the same thing to all the other sides. Then you'll take the glue and add it between each triangle piece, working 2 pieces at a time, kind of holding it together until that glue hardens. And then, as you can see, I'm just working my way around, and it's really simple. It's not too bad. If there's a little extra left over, it's not too big of a deal because we're going to be covering that up with the swag. You can also cut it down more if there's a little bit of extra. You can see how mine had a little extra lip. So this is what it looks like. Then you're going to paint it whatever color you want. I wanted mine to be black, so I'm just using some regular black acrylic paint. I haven't been able to find black foam board. They have the poster board that's black, which I guess you could use to put on top if you wanted to. Then I am so sorry this is out of the frame. I didn't realize this when I was doing it. I made 3 loops on my burlap, and then I took the pine cone and this poinsettia, and I wrapped it together and then just around because they're wired, and I wrapped that around my burlap ribbon, and I just secured it. You could use a rubber band, whatever you wanted. It's really simple. It's just, I was trying to use what I had on hand. Then I glued that on top of the lantern, and then I just started adding greenery in, and you can see here I'm trying to figure out like where I want certain pieces to be at. And it's one of those things that you just kind of layer pieces in a little bit at a time and figure out what look and coloring you are going for. You just need a little bit of glue and you can glue that down. I wanted to jazz it up a little bit more, so I decided to take my buffalo check ribbon that I had and just cut it and then fold the 3 sides in a little bit on each other, add that glue, and then add it inside of that upper area of the bow. And I really like the way that looks with the burlap. I think it just jazzed it up a lot. And then I took some really small ribbon, I had this also on hand, and I decided to glue that just on the edges between the lid and the actual glass frame. And I really like the way this looks. It added a nice pop of color to it. And I think it just makes it more tailored looking. You don't have to do this, but I really like the way it looks. Then I decided the very bottom needed a little bit of something, so I took some of the leftover leaves and berries and then just glued them to the very bottom. I think it made it look really Christmassy, and the best part about this is that you can always take it off if you're going to decorate it for Easter or for fall or whatever season you are decorating for. And I just added a little bit more gold pieces. And this is the way it has turned out. I really like the way the berries look on the bottom, and then I added ornaments on the inside with some faux candles, and I just think it came together really, really nice. These pine cones, and I will show you how to paint those in a second. Some greenery of choice, mine has wire in it, a rope of choice with twine, whatever you want to use, and I have this leftover ribbon from my last garland that I really, really liked, and then a glue gun, a paintbrush, some paint, and then some scissors. And I'm just going to show you with the pine cones. I just like to frost mine. Just take some regular white paint and brush the bottom tips of it, and then you'll turn that around and then you'll brush the inside of it, and it just looks like it was kissed by the snow, and it's very natural looking and I really like it. So what I did here was, my garland is about 3 feet long, as I made it for a shelf in my house. So if you want to make yours longer, you need more rope. I just started by tying a couple of the ribbons about 3 or 4 inches apart on the thing, and then you can just push it down or move it however much you need to. But I wanted to do a few more of those, and I actually added a few more because I thought it looked a little bare. Then I went in with the greenery and then just started by turning that, and it stays. You could hot glue it too if you wanted to, but I didn't find that necessary. And then just pulling that closer to the ribbon of your choice, and it's pretty flexible. Just kind of putting it in the design that you would like. I wanted mine to kind of have a little rhythm to it. And then I'm just taking a little bit of glue, adding that to the twine, and then holding the pine cone on. And I decided to put the pine cones sort of going in different directions, so one will go to the right and one will go to the left. You don't have to do that, but you can see how well it's filling up here. And if you need a little bit more foliage, you can add it. But I really, really like the way this came out. I think it looks really good, and compared to the one at Michael's, it is spot on to me. Next is going to be the candle votives. I just got one of the larger vases at Dollar Tree, and then a lot of their sprigs. They have different colors. They have red, gold, and silver. I chose the silver, and then I had these berries, which I didn't end up using, but you could for like snow on the bottom, but I didn't like the way they look. So all I did was cut the sprigs about the size of my candle votive, and then just add a little bit of glue to it and glue it down. It doesn't need much at all. And I liked the way these looked because it definitely gives a little bit more of an elegant feel to it. So if you're doing a table centerpiece for Christmas or anything like that, this is a great way to spruce it up, and it only costs you maybe $1.50 per candle votive, which is really inexpensive. And they look beautiful on the table. So you can see I'm just cutting and then adding a little bit of glue to the sprigs. I found that was a little bit easier, and then I took the leftover pieces and filled in the gaps, just adding a little bit of glue. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you another alternative to that candle votive with using real greenery. Again, you're going to want the candle votive or a vase with your choice, and then real or faux greenery will be just fine, especially for the holiday season. The fresh greenery will last just fine for you, and a glue gun. You're going to do the same thing, add a little bit of glue to the vase or to the sprig and just start adding and changing the layers on it. And you can make some tall, some short, and it looks really nice once it's all completed. And once you have it all filled up, then I just added a little bit of glue to the parts that were kind of sticking out a little bit so they would adhere to the vase more, and I really liked the way it came out. So this is the final look of everything together, and I really like this area. I decided to change it up, and hopefully I gave you some new ideas for decorating your house for Christmas. So for this DIY, the inspiration is this sign from Walmart. Now the first thing I did was just flip over this outdoor stake sign, and then we're just going to be prying off. You could probably pull them off, I just didn't want it to break. Then remove any excess glue and tags. And then I noticed it was a little bit fuzzy, so I just took a little bit of sandpaper and got that off to make it a nice smooth surface for our paint. Then I just took the white paint and I put a lot more in the middle, and then as I got down to the outside edges, I went ahead and just feathered it or dry brushed it on. You just don't want to press too hard. You want to just kind of feather that on. That way it has a nice aged look to it. And then again, I did this for the same thing for the black paint. Once the paint has dried, go ahead and take that stake that the signs came on, and then we're just going to measure out where we want it, and I just snapped it. You could use a saw to get a nice clean cut, but it wasn't a biggie to me. It broke fairly easy. Then I'm just figuring out how I want them to lay, and based off of the inspiration for this, they kind of overlap each other. So I just added some hot glue. You could use E6000 if you're going to be having this outside if you need to, and then just place those on the board. And then I went ahead after I glued that down, because the staples were still hanging out just a little bit, I flipped it over and then just hammered that down to make sure that, you know, it would stay there. So if you don't have good handwriting, you can obviously trace the lettering that you printed out with chalk and then rub that down onto the black surface, and you'll see like a little print for you to follow. I decided to freehand this. The font is really nice. I just used Word and went on there and printed out what I liked. You do whatever fits your style the best, so use something to trace it on or freehand it. It's completely up to you. Next I went in with some silver paint and I started making some snowflakes in various spots, some larger and some smaller, and then I took the glitter and applied that over the silver paint to help it sparkle a little bit, since it is Christmas and I just like a little bit of sparkle on there. Now Dollar Tree does have these little plaid bows that you could use for this, which I actually think looks really nice with the red, but I decided to make my own bow with the lace and burlap ribbon for a little bit more on the neutral side. I'm going to be sharing with you two different ideas for this, so stick around to the end, that way you can see the other idea. This is a wired ribbon, which is really easy to work with. I just made it wide enough on the edges to cover up my the part that it's holding the two signs together, because it'll just cover that up. And then I just went ahead and glued that down. I took the edges and folded them in, and then you can cut this either direction. You're just going to cut basically a triangle out of it, and it makes a pretty V in the bottom of it. And then I decided to add a little bit of the red crystals that they have, or whatever rhinestones you want to call those, and then just glue that around. And I added that on top of the ribbon in a few different spots to make it look really pretty and just add that little bit of red touch to it. This one I cut down one of these stones and then split it up the middle so it kind of spread apart just a teeny bit. And then I have this white and gold ribbon that I really liked as well, and I decided to add this on top of the lace to bring in just a little bit more of the neutral and add a little bit of that gold touch. And all of this ribbon is from Dollar Tree, and I just really like the way everything kind of came together for this look. You can do whatever you like for this. I ended up using some rope on the back to hold the sign up. If you want to hang it, you could use whatever you'd like. I just used rope because that's what I had on hand. And this is how this one came out. I really love the way this looks. You could add more red to it. You could write whatever you would like for this. It doesn't have to say Merry Bride, it could say Merry Christmas. Next idea is to use a floral sprig and add a little bit more red to it. So for this, Dollar Tree does carry both of these. I actually picked up this floral sprig at Walmart. It is 98 cents, but Dollar Tree does have sprigs right now. I just can't find them at my store. And I just took the chevron wired ribbon here and folded it over, and then the sprig, I just bent that on the bottom so it slides right over, and then you can just secure that with E6000 or hot glue, your choice here. But it makes it great if you can interchange this anytime you want to or change the look of it. And then again, I added a little bit of that white and gold ribbon on top of the chevron. So this was the sign that I was trying to replicate, and I think I came pretty darn close. I actually like my version better. You guys can let me know down in the comments. You will need a wreath. You'll need 2 floral picks, hydrangeas. I hope you all enjoyed these Christmas DIYs. Let me know which ones you would like to recreate or possibly give as gifts this season. I hope you all have an amazing day. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and of course share it with your friends. And until next time, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you soon.